Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okie-doke. How you feeling?
Uh, about the same as last week. I'm uh, I'm doing all right, I guess, but it just it's weird. It's weird. I've got a persistent cough, which I've had for a while. It uh well before uh COVID ever was even a thing. And I've got one other symptom that is actually the reason I stayed home. So
Okay. Well, you look better than you did last week, and you look a hell of a lot better than you did the week before. The
yeah,
week before, you looked like death warmed over, I'll tell you.
yeah, I I feel better. It, it's just a couple of weird little things, and like I said, I've had this persistent cough. I get it almost every year for flu season, and it doesn't go away until summertime. So I don't think that that's a COVID thing.
Well, do you have any allergies you know of?
Uh, well, not no, I can't really think of any wintertime allergies. I've got a couple uh you know, pretty typical pollen gets me,
Uh-huh.
but I can't think of anything that's really a wintertime thing like that. So
Well, I have an allergy that causes me to cough, and it's really bizarre. It appears to be something neutral that is in all the pills that I take.
uh,
Because if I, or at least most of them, because if I take a pill, within 5 or 10 minutes, I have, actually it's more sneezing than coughing. I get a sneezing jag.
yeah,
And it goes on. It's really, this is one of those rock your skeleton kind of sneezes. And after about 4 or 5 times, it calms down. Doesn't seem to make any difference whether I have something to drink, like iced tea or something like that. It
yep,
just, uh, just does it. And I have not been able to figure it out, but it seems to happen with a whole spectrum of pills that I take. So, of which at my age, I take a few. Um, so I've asked my doctors about it, and he said, well, probably something not in the medication itself, but something because most pills have a small amount of medication
yeah,
and have a big amount of pill stuff, so to speak. And he said, yeah, you probably got something there that's doing that. But if you can live with it, you're better off living with it and taking the pills than you are not taking the pills. So I take the pills, and I am selective about when I take them so that my wife's not
right,
sleeping while I do this. And yep. Oh,
yeah.
so Grand Poobah is here.
I Sneezing was actually one of the first things I went into a complete sneezing fit 2 weeks ago, right before I got the fever and everything, which was just weird. I don't know if sneezing was part of it or not, but it stopped right after I got my fever. The sneezing just stopped. It's
Huh,
and
interesting.
really the only pill that I take, and I don't take it every day. I maybe every other day. are those ibuprofens. So I
Mhm.
don't think that that's causing it. I do pop lodgings, like a Hall's cough thing in the morning, usually at night before I go to bed. But like I said, I've had this persistent cough probably for 15 years or so, and it comes around every winter and it goes away, and it it, it's nothing new, but it's also, sometimes it does, like the back of my throat. It
Mhm.
just rubs it raw, and then I don't really feel like talking or doing much. So what's going on, Mr. Jim?
It's a happy day. There's a new battery announcement.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was just one.
There's a lot of battery development programs going on because there's a lot of loot at the end of that path.
Oh yeah, a lot of solar cells needing some place to store.
Well, that and all the portable stuff you've got these days. Now that, of course, that's a building for buildings, and I would assume that that's a competitor to the Tesla battery pack, whatever they call them, that you put in your house.
The home thing, yeah.
Yeah, but when you consider all the portable stuff you've got and what a pain it is to have to recharge it all the time and so forth and so on, batteries is, we used to think batteries were important, 30 years ago. Who cares? You buy another alkaline battery and that's that. But today, man, everything is portable, from your toothbrush to your cell phone to, and all of them want the smallest, highest energy possible. And so,
And they want them light. It has to be light.
oh yeah, has to be light.
Has to be light. It can't add very much weight to anything.
Well, the other thing that I ran into in that regard recently is when we flew out here in November, they specifically asked me if in my checked luggage I had anything with lithium ion batteries, because they're scared to death of all kinds of battery fires. And of course, there have been some pretty nasty ones. And that was the first time on a flight I've ever been asked that. They didn't seem to be worried about what I had in any carry-on luggage. So if I had a laptop or a tablet or whatever, they weren't worried about that. They were worried about what went in my baggage. Now, I don't know what the consequence would have been if I said yes.
They
I don't know.
probably would have made you unpack your bag.
Well, possibly. I don't know. I didn't. That's the path not taken in my case. If maybe
I think they're worried about the unpressurized cargo area of
that could be that makes sense.
So they probably would just have you take it out and put it in your carry-on. But
yeah, well, when I'm standing there signing on for a flight that's going to leave in 2 hours, and I'm an hour away from home, that's not an experiment I want to run.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other worst case they could do is have you put it in one of those air lockers that are there and just lock it up while you're gone.
Yeah, that when you're flying for 2 days, that's fine.
Yeah,
When you're
I understand.
for 6 months, that's not so good.
Yeah, but
So,
I I don't know. I haven't experienced that because I don't really fly, but I would imagine they would just have you unpack your bag and just,
that could be, I suppose.
yeah.
So
Because I
you don't
think
fly as a matter of choice, or just don't have any place to go?
both.
Oh, okay.
No, there's Annie lives in northern Kentucky. She's the oldest kid, so I mean, there's no point in flying there. And everybody else lives right around here, so
Oh, okay. No, we are spread across as about as far as you can go. I guess we could go to the East Coast and be a little further, but
yeah.
from say San Francisco Bay Area to CBG here in northern Kentucky, I guess it's
Well,
someplace north of 2,000 miles. So
when I was,
it's not like I want to jump in the car and drive for 2,000 miles. I'm not
yeah,
sure. I'm not. We've been married for a long time, but I'm not sure that a 2,000-mile road trip in a car wouldn't strain things a bit.
yeah, when I was much younger, I would pretty much drive anywhere east of the Mississippi, and I could do it in a day, day and a half. So it wasn't that big a deal. But now that I'm a little older, I don't know if I can make those trips like that. Probably have to stop somewhere and rest.
Well, I guess that getting from, say, St. Louis to Fremont, California is probably 2 days by itself. So,
Uh, yeah, when I drove to California one time. I'll never do it again. But I think it was a 3 or 4 day drive.
from here,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, when I moved, when I guess I was a designated driver when my younger daughter moved from San Jose to at that time Batavia here, which is over east of us a few miles. It was a 5-day trip, but we were in a rental truck.
yeah,
And first of all, and we were pulling an automobile trailer, which is an experience I don't plan to do again. But we did it in 5 days roughly. Actually, it was 5 nights, but it was parts of days on both ends.
yeah.
So
So I think
but with that, you're limited to 55 miles an hour.
right.
And it's interesting. We stopped at all the way stations, every place along the way, but nobody wanted us. Nobody wanted to weigh us. And apparently in some states, Missouri comes to mind specifically, if you're traveling privately, like on a vacation or something, or moving or something, they don't weigh you.
Yeah.
They only weigh you if you're a commercial vehicle. And so, but that was an experience and a half. It was, we had a 24-foot box trailer, Penske box trailer.
Yeah.
And she set the whole thing up when she decided she was going to move. And so she set the whole thing up. So she rented a Penske box trailer, and she rented this trailer from Penske also. And they put the car, her '99 Mustang on it in San Jose and took it off in Batavia. Actually, off in Mount Repose, because that's where we dropped off the truck. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know where Mount Repose is, but it's east of 275 on 28, about 3 or 4 miles, something like that. 5
Okay.
miles.
Yeah.
If you know where the Myers is out there, it's where the Myers is. At any rate, so
Yeah. I think it took us, we drove out there. I think it took every bit of 4 days to do it. I was the only driver. The guy that I was taking out to California was supposed to drive, but he stayed drunk the whole entire time. So,
oh really?
yes. So it was a trip that I will never do it again, because we were supposed to switch back and forth. I would, if I get tired, he was supposed to drive, but since he was drunk 90% of the time, that never ever happened.
Well, that's probably just as well. So
So,
where did you go in California? It was Northern California, Southern?
LA.
Okay, so that's a little shorter, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, well, part of it was putting up with a drunk. Part of it was driving. Part of it was just the random stops where he just randomly, oh, let's go there. Okay, well, he's paying.
This is in a car?
Van, full size, 78 Dodge full size piece of junk van.
So, okay, so point is it was a passenger vehicle.
Yeah, it was a passenger car.
Vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
we had some funny stories with the car trailer. There's some special techniques involved in backing up.
yeah.
There's also some special techniques involved in cutting corners and so forth and so on. And I managed to get, those posts they have in a gas station to protect the pumps?
Yes.
Well, I managed to get the trailer hung up on one of those posts. Post didn't get any damage, but the trailer definitely took the brunt of it.
Yeah.
But I pulled into the gas station and I cut it too tight around the pumps, and I heard this metal crunch, and I thought, oh crap. And sure enough, I was hung up.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there was a German motorcycle touring group in the gas station, and they watched me trying to get this thing backed up. Finally, one of them came over and said something to me. I said, do you need some help? Heavy German accent, but the bottom line was, do you need some help? And so one of them stood at the back and one of them stood in the front. And the one at the front would say, all right, crank the wheel all the way this way. And then back up a little bit. And then crank the wheel all the way this way. 4 or 5 passes, they got me off the thing and pulled right on through. It was no problem.
Yeah.
So after that, I was very, very careful about, and when we parked in motels, we stayed 5 nights coming across, and we always tried to find a pull-through parking place where you could pull in and then pull out in the same direction.
Yeah.
And as long as you arrived early enough in the evening, that was not too much of a problem. But in some cases, because there are sections coming across Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, etc., where things aren't very close together. you know, we would sometimes arrive late and then have to jigger around, find a place to park. But that gave me a lot of appreciation for driving with a trailer. So
Yeah. Every time I've driven a trailer, I try to find a spot where I could pull through. But most of the time I stay, when I was doing a lot of hauling like that, I would stay at hotels that accommodated truck drivers. So there would be semi truck parking. I just park over there.
yeah,
So most of the time, nobody said anything at all about it, especially when you've got a 30-foot trailer or something you're pulling behind.
yeah, that's true.
So,
So any projects this week, or are you still not up to it?
well, I sort of did a project, but it wasn't really my project. It was more of a,
Hey, how about participant screen sharing? Is that a project?
I don't want to. Okay, hang on just a second.
No, I noticed that. Man,
That's because I forgot. Okay, you should be able to screen share.
he keeps our wings shared. I wanted to show you something that we've talked about before, maybe.
You should,
My son is needing internet service at home, and I'm looking at the T-Mobile deal. Excess of 100 megabits per second, 35 to 115. I know a man like you probably need better than 115. And it's
That's download speed.
yeah, up is, let's see, we'll go back.
that's the 5G.
Yeah. But it looks like if my son's got it down in LA, then they probably have it up here.
Your son is in LA?
That says Lower Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Lower Alabama. That's
All right.
that's LA, all right.
Yeah.
Let's see, one more maybe. It's 100. Let's see, it did mention the down speed, I think.
Well, the 100 would be the down speed. The up speed wouldn't be that fast.
Typical down speeds between 35 and 115. It
Mm-hmm.
No data cap. $50 with auto pay. No annual contract.
This is all T-Mobile,
Yeah,
and this is directly through T-Mobile. This is not through some third party.
no, this is through T-Mobile. They do have looks like they have a complimentary agreement with Sprint for areas that one of them may not service. You may go through Sprint.
Well, but Sprint is now merged with T-Mobile.
yeah,
so
they're the same company.
Okay.
T-Mobile, I think this is nationwide, but T-Mobile basically owns what used to be Sprint, because we had Sprint and we were forced to go to T-Mobile by the first of the year. And in fact, we had to change our phones, because in order to go to T-Mobile, we had to have a 5G capable phone, or at least a 4G capable phone. And the old phones we had were 3G. So I guess it was 4G that forced us to go to.
I need to try to sell those to a museum or something. 3G, man.
Yeah, well, actually, they weren't that old. They were only about 3 years old. So,
Upload speeds are 6 to 23 megabits per second.
where's that? Let's see. I'm looking for that. Oh,
This bottom
6.
is highlighted.
Yeah, got it. Yeah,
And so it's just a modem. And there you go.
very good. So what part of Alabama does he live in? Does he live down close to the coast, or?
Yeah, yeah, he's in Daphne. That's on the bay.
Oh, okay, so he's right at the Gulf then.
Yeah, he's probably 20 miles from the Gulf, up in the bay.
So he's still within hurricane reach.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. You get up to Montgomery. I've been in Montgomery, and the hurricane came all the way up I-65 and visited us in Montgomery, which is quite a ways inland. But they usually don't go that far, but they can. Well, I had them come up here and get me. Got my sister in Baton Rouge, got my brother in Houston, and got me sitting right here. Dang. Okay. But just be aware that's an option. That's pretty cheap and pretty good deal, I think.
Yeah, $50 is a good deal. No question about that.
Oh, there's a warning for the Linux users. Apparently there's a problem with Linux. You can look at the news on the meeting announcements. Oh, you want me to show you? Let's see.
Where is it? Let's see.
Are you talking about the
It's the first one, and no, it's not. It's not on there, is it? It's in the newsletter itself. Maybe I didn't make it over. Let's see. Let me look at the.
I don't see major bug grant root for all major Linux distributions. Is that
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's in your announcement.
Okay,
It's the second one down in the news this week.
I see it. Gotcha. Okay.
I wondered who Parker was.
Oh, that's Parker. That would be me. This is my middle son.
Aha.
Okay, where am I here?
So you showed up just in time to talk about Linux.
I suppose so. That wasn't the point.
How'd that happen? Dang.
That
Feel like there's no place like home shirt.
yeah.
I like that.
I like that.
That was a Christmas present.
I thought that root bug had been in the kernel for a long time. I remember hearing about it a long time ago. In fact, I think I used it once when I lost access to one of my machines, and I think I used that bug once to gain access to it.
You hacked into your own machine. Okay.
Well, it was there. Why not use it?
Okay. Is that enough of that?
We gave it to Jen Fox because her Wi-Fi was terrible.
It's a good box. You can also install DDWRT on it or OpenWRT.
Tempting. I am gonna close this, and I'm gonna.
Whoops. Whoops.
Okay.
That's one of these, what does this button do?
I'm going to hit this and see what happens.
Yep.
This is, it's an e-paper display. They're back.
Oh,
It's an e-paper display from M5 stack. M5
Really?
paper.
wow.
It has been on for 4 or 5 days now, and its battery is at 75%. And every hour it goes off and it grabs the weather. So this isn't
Wow.
really my project. It goes into like super deep sleep for an hour. This was just one of those little things that I wanted to try to, because I wanted something to do with this actual display.
So where'd you get that?
I bought that right before the pandemic from M5 Stack, and now they're hard to get. So I'm glad I bought it when I bought it. But
Are you just talking about e-ink displays?
yeah,
So did you buy an e-ink display on its own, or did you buy a device with an e-ink display?
it's got an ESP32
Gotcha.
built into it. M5 Stack made it, put it in this nice little bezel, battery operated. It's got regular GPIO on it, SD card, touchscreen, so it, and a little flippy do switch thing.
What's the switch do?
Whatever you program it to do.
Oh, okay. So how much you give for this thing?
I think this was $70.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was well outside of my normal $5.
I was gonna say, that's not the usual Leroy cheap zone.
And that's one reason why I wanted to use it for something. It's been sitting in a box for 2 years. So I was thinking,
And you left the screen on the whole time.
it stays on. Can't turn it off.
Whoosh.
But it's in deep sleep right now, which
If
it's
that's
been
easy
running.
to
It's
set up,
been running for 3 or 4 days, and it's down to 75%. It started off at 77%, so 75% battery life. Comes on once an hour, goes and grabs the updates and
So
displays.
does the image disappear after it's on?
No, it should stay pretty much for forever.
you have
Well,
to actually.
I have
upload it to be
burnt
blank.
screens that do that also, but the question is, how do I change it to something different?
Oh, I can. I mean,
Well, the screen buffer.
yeah. It'll update. Let's see what time is it. It'll update here in like 20 more minutes.
You've got to hold it up in front of the camera until then.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
It's got good contrast, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's the same technology, I guess, that
Most of-
Amazon used in their Kindle.
most of the ebooks, e-readers use e-ink display. They've
There's
gotten.
also one that does black, red, and white.
Yep.
Not sure how those work.
Different particle sizes.
Mhm.
That way, like you turn it on briefly, the particles shoot up. The small particles shoot up through the opaque liquid, and then they only. If you want it black, you just turn it on all the way for a longer period of time.
Okay.
Okay.
They,
It sounds like one of the early liquid crystal devices I worked on in the late 60s. It was called worked by a process called dynamic scattering, and there was a large molecule that got pulled through the liquid crystal material, and it would cause the dynamic scattering in that region would cause you to get an image. It was replaced subsequently by the field effect device, twisted pneumatic field effect devices, but the problem with it in the late 60s was the mean life to fail of these devices was about 15 minutes. It would gradually, this black cloud would grow across the screen, became not very useful thereafter.
Was the liquid crystal oxidizing or something, or like did it break down due to electricity?
What happened was the liquid crystal that we were using was it was what's called an apapa class of liquid crystal, and it was consists of very large molecules, and they would dissociate after a period of time. And if the cell wasn't sealed perfectly, in other words, hermetically, air would get in from the side. This is very early. This is RCA in the 1967, 68, 69 timeframe. And we had quite a project going on with that. And then I left.
So this is right around the time when they were working on audio storage video storage on record, like
Laserdisc?
it wasn't Laserdisc.
it was CED, capacitance electric display,
Yes.
or electron display, or
Actually, that was about 10 years later.
Oh,
That was in towards the late 70s. So now
they
it was an interesting time. It was Iron Men and wooden computers, so to speak. But we had a lot of fun with it, I will say that. Although working at RCA was not a lot of fun, but the projects certainly were.
a lot of politics.
Well, you can call it politics, you can just call it working with whatever the politically correct term for a-holes is. Yes. Yes.
this
Okay, what is that thing?
It's a drink that I got from
No. The thing it's sitting on.
headphone stand.
E-ink, okay.
yeah it
Who's sharing? Is that you, Jim?
nope, it's me. That's
Blame
me.
Leroy for this one. I didn't do it that time.
It I remember reading this. There's like a positive charge on one side of the screen and negative charge on the other side, and then you flip it. But they're talking about the color. They're talking about the new color, so they can mix colors now, and you can get a full color display out of it.
With not great contrast.
Yeah, it's not perfect yet. It's getting better though.
Yeah.
So what's the max resolution on it?
Oh.
The standard
1200 by
black and white ones
1600, I
go
see
to
that.
about 300 DPI.
Yeah. It depends. It depends on how old the display is now too. So I've got some old displays that do not have very good resolution at all. This, if I remember right, this one is 600 by 560. Nope, it's 960 by 540.
So about 200 DPI.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
16 level grayscale. So it's not horrible. It's not a horrible display. I mean, you want display pictures or anything, but it's really good for text.
Well, for ebooks, that's basically what you want. You have a,
And the contrast is pretty good.
It would be interesting to throw an entire survival guide on one of those with like a hand crank for power. I mean, seriously though, like if you want something where like civilization collapses kind of thing, hand crank power, and then you just put as many ebooks explaining various
How to
situations.
crank it.
How to crank it, yeah.
How to crank it. You know, I don't suppose that would be so hard to do because I mean they're
So low
USB chargeable. So if you had a USB hand crank deal,
With
Yeah.
a solar cell on the back of it, the size of that thing, probably charge it up in a day and be good for a couple of weeks.
yeah.
You might just be able to get it to run on supercapacitor, and then
Well-
that way the hand crank would actually suffice. I mean, it only needs to turn on long enough to update the display.
Yeah. This one technically though isn't a ebook. I have not found software yet to actually make it an ebook. This one is, you know, it's an ESP32, so you can display whatever you want.
I mean, most ebooks are pretty much just HTML files, so shouldn't
Yeah.
be that bad.
well, there's a whole bunch of different protocols. Amazon has their own, and there's EPUB and so forth. And so on.
Yeah. I think EPUB's probably one of the more open standards, isn't it?
Yes.
I know the factory demo of this, it would read text files, so it can read text files off of the SD card. So
To be fair, if you pipe in an EPUB, it will read it, and it could even display the characters. It just won't be pretty. Enjoy your raw HTML.
it would just need an interpreter, something to interpret that HTML to make it do something.
Your eyes can interpret the HTML.
Yes, thank you. I don't want to do that.
Where the hell am I? at?
It's bad enough sometimes just looking at C code.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it's my favorite language.
Oh God, it's so unsafe. It's ridiculous.
Well, except that it runs like a bat out of hell.
So does Rust.
Sounds like a true COBOL guy to me.
Oh no, that's worse.
Fortran, we need it.
Than COBOL.
Well,
Lisp. Let's just do Lisp.
how about Forth?
Ah,
I'm
Quick
probably the
basic.
only person here who's ever written in Forth.
Quick basic, yeah.
Turbo Basic.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
So is Pascal.
I've done that too.
Turbo Pascal was very
Turbo Pascal,
popular in the early 80s. Borland produced a little IDE, I guess you'd call it, where you could write your own Pascal programs, and then they came out with a C and a C++ and so forth and so on.
If I understand correctly, we actually have an application here at Reisenfeld that is compiled from Turbo Pascal. At least that's what the debug symbols say.
Well, Pascal was a compiled language. It was not a script language.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ended up with machine code or assembly code, which
Yeah.
then you ran through an assembler and
Yeah, but
So
there are
forth.
debug symbols in the binary that it puts out. that specifically identify the compiler as being a Turbo Pascal compiler.
It wouldn't surprise me that it was very, very popular.
Thing
You know.
is, it's 2022.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and that application is so outdated. It is like, it's not a complaint about the programming language. I don't know anything about Pascal. I had to look it up when I found it.
Well, academia has gone through a series of languages that were used for teaching. And in the 70s, it was BASIC.
mhm.
It was the Cornell BASIC. And in the 80s, the early 80s, it was Pascal. And then in the 90s, they kind of segued into C and C++. And now they're using Python.
Python.
Python is a great language for people who have great memories but don't know how to think. And so that's my assessment of the various programming languages I've worked on. I won't tell you about the ones in the 50s and 60s I worked on. So,
It isn't that bad, is it?
Yeah, it is.
How do you hate Python? What's so bad about Python?
I just
well, if you're writing code that written in compact C takes you 6 weeks to run, as I've written for things like seismic analysis for oil domes and some of the weather forecasting programs. You want something that runs fast.
Yes.
Interpreted languages just don't run fast.
Okay, that's fair, but that's a different use case kind of thing. The development time on Python is dramatically quicker.
As I say, for people who have excellent memories and don't care to be bothered with thinking, that's probably true. But if
It's great.
if you've got stuff that you need to be really, really compact,
Sure.
and run fast, it's not, I mean, obviously, if you wrote directly in assembly language, it'd take you a lifetime, but it runs like a bat out of hell.
Thing,
so-
but compilers are good at this point. Compilers are much better at organizing code.
Okay, I won't get into that discussion.
I don't know.
it's about ready to update. Maybe
Okay,
I might be a little early.
don't let your hand shake now. We want to make sure that we see this flip over.
Vicente, what code do you like? What language do you like?
What? What?
Vicente, what language do you like? Coding language.
C++.
Yeah.
I'm playing with Python, but
Yeah, exactly. I expected you to say Python.
no, it's-
I thought you'd say MicroPython.
There it goes. There it goes.
Bam.
We're updating
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
We are.
and nothing really changed.
It says light snow.
It does say light snow. Something changed. Oh, my battery went down another %.
Oh, man.
It kind of
Ah.
surprises me.
Well, it's been running for a good 4 or 5 days. And it started off at 77%. So it never actually was fully charged in the first place.
I would have thought that thing would have been able to go a year on a charge.
If
If it's dating only once an hour.
It probably will go a very long time. I'm actually surprised. I'm actually quite impressed with how little the battery has gone down.
Yeah, the
'Cause-
Kindles that use the same screen type run amazingly long. My wife has a Kindle that she uses probably 3-4 hours a day. And it's amazing to me. The main time she has to charge it is when there's a new book's going to download. And I don't know why that is, but this is the black magic she's been taught. And so she charges when she's going to download a new book.
This one really only uses a lot of power when it's connected to the internet.
Well,
It has to connect to the internet to go and update the weather.
I had one of the early Kindles with a little keyboard on the bottom. It was
Yeah.
pretty decent. That thing would do about 5,000 page turns before needing a charge.
Yeah.
That one was kind of cool in that you could get root on it and it would read PDFs directly. I had
Yes.
hundreds of tech manuals on that thing. Not even sure where it is at this point.
Well, the
I think
the current ones, or the last few years ones, all read PDF, and they read a variety of. They don't read just ASW. I think it's ASW, whatever the native Amazon
AWS.
AWS. Well, for those dyslexic of us, those are the same. Okay. But anyway, they read, you can download almost anything to them.
Yeah.
And they'll read it.
I want a
But-
good one that'll read comic books,
Oh, yeah?
but I want it in color. I want a color one
Well,
because
what's that
I
color?
want to read comic books in black and white.
Yeah, what's the color thing that not Tesla, Amazon has?
Fire.
Fire, yeah.
Fire.
Those
Yep.
are regular LCD screens.
But I don't really want an LCD screen. I'd much rather have an e-ink. The color e-inks are very expensive right now, though. So that's not really going to happen anytime soon. At
Oh,
least
you mean it's above the Leroy threshold of pain?
$300 is above my threshold,
Oh, yeah, I guess.
especially since I've got a couple of black and white ebook readers that will actually read comic books. They just don't look great.
I got to tell you, I read Kindle books a lot also, and a lot of ebooks, but I like Amazon's cloud ebook arrangement, and that's great. As long as you're on an airplane, you got to download it while you've got an internet connection, but that works fantastic. And I do that on my full screen. So I can crank the print up to large enough to be able to see comfortably. And it's great. And used to be, I had to, on my Linux boxes, I had to install Wine and then install the Kindle software. Now anymore, it doesn't care what operating system I'm in. It's basically reading a web page, and the resolution is great. The speed is great. I love it. So, and I can load into my library on Amazon. I can load other types of ebooks. So it's great.
Yeah.
I will never go back to the business of loading Wine and then jiggering around with it to try to get Kindle run on it and so forth and so on. It was a real pain.
To be fair, nobody's really used Wine for much in the last 5 years.
Well, to be fair, I can understand why. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
It-
I was going to ask if anybody had used Wine 7. They say that has improved. It's improved wine like 100%.
I've spent a few hundred hours trying to get wine to work properly with various applications that just plain didn't run on anything but Windows. And I got to tell you, I'd love to have those hours back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see why?
There are still some
Oh,
what I would call commercial industrial applications that run only on Windows. And one of them I think of is the courses I was teaching at San Jose City College with programmable logic controllers. The Allen Bradley controllers software runs only on Windows. The Unitronics runs only on Windows. And what's the other one? Siemens runs only on Windows. So, you
That's
know,
not true anymore.
pardon?
That's not true anymore.
What do they run on? They now have
They,
a
they
Linux.
now package it for Linux.
You're talking about Siemens?
Yeah,
Cool. Cool.
I work for Siemens PLM.
Huh.
So with wine, can you tell it to like, here's this other DLL, you can make use of this DLL? Like, are you able to give it more DLLs for it to work with so that it can actually better emulate Windows?
I suppose you could if you had an infinite amount of time to work with it, but I've never successfully done that. I'll put it that way.
I will give this. I played with wine for a while. This was 2-3 companies back, trying to get some salesmen set up on a Linux terminal server. And I couldn't get wine to run Microsoft Office very well. But we ended up buying a license for back office, which was a modified Wine HQ distribution, and it ran Office 97 better than Windows did. It was great. And I had about 20 salesmen on diskless workstations, all hooked up to a Pentium 667 box. And oh shoot, I'm trying to remember what we had LXDE for a desktop. They loved it. It was great. It worked perfectly. They had Office. As far as Microsoft was concerned, it was only a single installation. So all 17 of them could be running Excel at the same time. And that crappy little PC ran beautifully for years. So might be worth actually buying wine derivatives. I don't know. I didn't realize Wine 7 was out. That was in the Wine 3 days, if I remember right.
Yeah. Wine 7, I'm not real sure when it came out. January 19th is the last article I see for it. But I remember many, many, many years ago, my experience with wine was about like yours was, Art, but I found a installer program that would set wine up to install. So you would go through the list of stuff that it knew how to do, and it would set it up. And that was a godsend because stuff just sort of started working then. The only problem with that was every time you wanted to install something new, it would install a different version of wine. So there would be like 6 or 7 different versions of wine on your machine, for each, if you wanted to run 6 different programs, you would have 6 different versions of wine. It would just take up a lot of room. That was the biggest complaint that I had. Of course, that was back in the days when, a couple of 100 gig hard drive was a standard thing. And so room was, a premium. Yeah. Now that you've got, you know, terabytes of drives to deal with, room's not so much of a premium anymore. So
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago.
yeah. So that was my my thing. Wine seemed to work well with like some of the Windows games, but if you wanted to actually do something useful, it was really a pain in the butt to get it to work. So,
Well,
of course, that was back, you know, when Linux wasn't a massive gaming, it didn't have a lot of game support for it anyway. So
They still don't.
It's getting better.
it's better. It's better. I mean, you've got Steam, and if you look in the repositories, there's a lot of games now, a lot more than there used to be.
And they aren't all like just copies of like Minesweeper. There used to be a lot of that. I remember like as a kid looking for games on Linux, and it was just like, I don't want to play Minesweeper, but I don't want to play Minesweeper, but it's like it's fire hydrants, and that's the icons changed. I swear, it's all they did.
Yeah, yeah. There was what was that, Tuck Skiing or something like that. That was the first game I remember ever playing.
Yeah, downhill ski.
Downhill ski.
There was also somewhere like there was a ball that bounced, and you had to split the screen.
That was
like Quicks.
I can never find it now. I don't know what it is.
It was named after a woman. It was I've got it. K-Bounce. K-Bounce was the best version of it. Jezebel. Yeah.
Jezebel.
Jezebel.
I mean, at this point, if I want to play a game, I'll just get the Switch out or the PS4 or the Xbox. I mean, I don't really game on my computer. My computer's not really a gaming computer.
So Steve, I'm interested in this business of Siemens programmable logic controller language now is available. The IDE is available on Linux.
It's not a thing that I work on. I'm level 2 support, but I know that it's a thing that they got enough requests for that they translated it.
Well, they do a lot of PLCs in Europe, so that's not surprising for me. Germany in general has been very, very aggressive with Linux on desktops as opposed to servers. So I'll have to do a search for that because I assume this is proprietary to their PLCs. It doesn't run on other kinds of PLCs. So
I don't know.
Well, generally speaking, the PLC companies have all generated their own programming language, protocols, and so forth and so on. And they don't run cross-platform at all. The only thing cross-platform is that they all use ladder logic as their default programming.
Oh man, I tried to read into that. That is hard.
What?
It's so weird.
Ladder logic is easy.
Yeah, I was going to say that out of all the programming languages, ladder logic's probably one of the easier ones to understand.
Well,
okay.
the key thing with ladder logic is that for a technician, an electronic tech who is not a programmer, it's easy for them to visualize what's going on because you've got inputs on one side, you got outputs on the other side, or depending on which way you're looking at my screen. And so it's logical for them. They already know how to wire things up. They
And-
know how to wire sensor devices. They know how to wire output devices. And so for them, this is a form of logic they've been working with their whole career. So you take somebody who is an electronics tech working on industrial equipment, and it's a perfect fit. They're already used to thinking that way. But for somebody coming in from, C programming or Python programming or whatever, who doesn't think in electronic terms, thinks in more abstract terms, it's not so obvious. What's that cummerbund you have on there, Leroy?
Oh, it's just my blanket.
Oh, okay. You and Linus, huh? Steve was the only one that got that.
Linus would be more like this one.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
I have a quick question that has nothing to do with any of this. So
What
I'm
time
at
is it?
Rise, this is my old office at Reisenfeld. I'm down here because Parker is working at Reisenfeld now.
Yay.
Yay.
They have used up their stash of Raspberry Pis.
Ah,
Anybody have a Raspberry Pi 4 that they want to sell?
Aw.
Could be profitable.
Yeah.
it probably could be.
How many Raspberry Pi 4s do you need? Well, how many Raspberry Pi 4s do you use, and how many do you have? I guess is the real question.
I actually only have 2 Raspberry Pi 4s.
Really?
Yes.
I got
Most
more than you do.
of my Raspberry Pis are 3B pluses.
Yeah, mine also. I probably have a dozen 3B pluses, but
Yeah.
fours, no dice.
I have 2 4s. One of them is the original 1 gig model, and one of them I think is a 4 gig model.
Yeah.
I found my first Raspberry Pi the other day with the RCA output.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if it still boots or not. I haven't had a chance to try it.
Well, you can always put a new SD in it, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
An outsider to this group would say at this point, why hasn't someone said why? But all these groups know each other and we all know.
We all know why. Yeah.
Don't
Nobody says
ask why.
Don't ask why.
Don't ask why.
I know I've got at least 4 Pi 4s, and I have no idea how many Pi 3s. But yeah, I don't want to sell mine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, anybody in this, Leroy say the same thing.
I don't want to sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only got 2, so it's not
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
I take
Okay.
it that Micro Center doesn't have any right now.
Who's CQing?
That's my scanner.
Your scanner does
Morse.
Morse?
Of course.
It is Franklin PD, or not PD, Franklin Fire, and they're IDing the station after they've dispatched somebody.
Interesting.
So
I heard all of the words and I understood them individually, but
when you transmit, you're supposed to ID your station.
Yeah.
And the FCC says that you can ID NCW. So
Basically,
So-
as a matter of fact, it's every, whatever, 10 minutes, something like that. You're supposed
yeah,
to do.
but most of the commercial stations or most of the emergency stations will ID every single time they transmit.
No,
So
but I mean, if you have a long transmission, you have to
every
ID
10 minutes.
every 10 minutes, as I recall.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I took the exam, but
So basically you just give your call sign, and that's what the CW ID does.
Yeah.
It's just going out and giving them
you
their
identify who you are.
call sign.
It
So-
used to be the repeaters did that on the tails, yeah.
Well, and the repeaters do it. If you listen, they do it every hour, every half hour. They'll send out a CW, or they will actually announce who they are. But for whatever reason, Franklin PD or Franklin Fire has decided that every time they transmit, they're going to send CW. So
Maybe they got a bunch of old dogs who actually read CW.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what their call sign is, but that's what you're hearing. And for some reason, their CW transmission is louder than the dispatch. So she said something. I didn't hear what it was because I've got headphones on, but I heard the CW.
Yeah. I think we all did. It was loud enough. It came over the Zoom.
It came over the thing. Yeah. So Micro Center does not have any Raspberry Pi 4s.
Oh, pretty much nobody has them.
Yep, you can go down Raspberry Pi's website and you can say, I want to buy a Raspberry Pi 4. And they give you, like, here's everybody who sells a Raspberry Pi. You click on all of them.
And nobody has them.
One Canakit does, but they only have them bundled into something that's like $130,
Yeah.
$140. And like, I'm tempted, but I also was hoping to get it without waiting for shipping. But
How many do you actually need?
I need at least 2, but I would prefer at least 3 because I know, yeah. I want to have one here so I can at least like look at it and go, okay, your screen should look like this. While they're still trying to set it up or having issues getting it connected to their Wi-Fi or whatever. I could live with just, I don't know.
We'll see what I can.
Worst comes, I'm just gonna load a Linux machine up and just throw Linux on it and then just use the X3RDP stuff. I'm probably gonna
Yeah.
just use
It works well.
your scripts to set up a different Linux.
Yeah, it works well.
Yeah.
Well, you could actually run Raspberry on a Linux on a desktop machine.
Yep, you
It'd
can.
be very similar.
That's what he was suggesting, but I was curious, like how well, like I figured Raspbian was like pared down enough that it wouldn't be able to, like it wouldn't have drivers for x86. I figured it was
Actually, it's almost
specifically for ARM.
it's almost a gig bigger. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it has a lot of other drivers in there.
Weird.
Yep.
No,
Well, there's the desktop version, and then there's the version that they made for the Raspberry Pis.
They make a desktop version?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So if you go to raspberrypi.org or whatever and go to the download,
yeah,
there will be a selection there for the desktop version for PCs, and it's going to be, I mean, if the goal is to be able to look at a screen and tell you what you should be looking at, it's going to be similar enough that you should be able to do that.
Tempted.
downloads.raspberrypi.org. I can walk you through where it's at.
So what's this book of the week that just popped up here? Is that you, Jim?
Yeah, I updated my new books actually this week.
So it's not a link though.
Yeah, it is. It's at the bottom of the meeting announcement. There's a link to new books. Oh, that there is not a, no, it's not a link.
That's just text.
Yeah,
Hold on, wait.
that's an audio book. It was available in audio.
Wait a minute. This is you say it's at the bottom of the announcement?
Yeah, let's see where it is. It's always there.
Yeah,
there for a few
I
years.
see very old link to all
EOS farm
audiobook reviews.
Yeah, there you go.
It's
here.
It's the new one, which would be
New audio
Current.
book reviews. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna download for Windows.
That's the installer.
Download.
Caves of Steel. Cool.
Yeah, I ran across that one again. Snuck up on me.
Well, that's
Over the down.
Classic pair.
See what they do.
I guess. I remember reading that as a kid.
Yeah.
That's for on the Pi. Keep going down.
Which was a long time ago, by the way.
it's raspberrypi.com/software. That's where it's at.
/ x86.
Also, there's another book.
That's the wrong version.
Geez, American Marxism. Oh, lose some sleep over that one. That's a Mark Levin.
RDP x86.
Is that on the,
Yes.
It's not on the list, is it? Is it on the list? Let's see.
oldest possible one and eventually.
Okay, so 2019-04-12 is the last of the old version.
I don't see the American Marxism there on your,
Those have
list.
Newer.
Okay, we'll fix that.
desktop, and it just
well,
lets
is it on the old list by any chance?
your-
I'm looking at the new list.
No, it's a new book.
I think these will all work. They're Buster before Wayland.
And that was actually at the library. They had it displayed on the top sellers last time I was through there.
So that was recent?
Yeah, it's a top seller now. Nonfiction.
American Marxism, okay.
Quick question about Raspberry OS. Do you know when they started shipping that Wayland driver?
No, because
Okay,
they've changed their website around a lot since the last time I've been there.
yeah, well, I found it, and Buster came out longer ago than I thought.
Yeah,
And so I'm thinking it's been Buster for a while, and then they changed it to Buster with Wayland, but I can't tell which is which from the file names.
yeah.
I know that my scripts don't work with Wayland.
I know if you Google like the archive, you can go and you can download old versions of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's just downloads.raspberrypi.org.
yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at their website and now they're saying download for Ubuntu x86,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Well, no, that's for the RPI.
Oh, that's
install.
for the archive installer. Okay. But they've got the download Raspberry Pi desktop that looks like it is from last year, January 11th of last year. So
You're talking about 2021,
2021, yeah.
okay?
That looks like the last version of the Raspberry Pi desktop that they've got.
Yeah,
But I don't know when they changed stuff around.
because we use what is it? X-Free RDP. And it just doesn't work with Wayland, and I quit beating my head against it. It was
So
easier
what's
to
this Wayland thing, Steve?
Wayland is the current replacement for X. Everybody's going, oh, X is old. Come up with something different. And Wayland is one of them. And it's nice. It has some neat little advantages, but it doesn't run the software I need. And the software hadn't caught up yet. So,
So you
Correct.
need the last version that's non-Wayland, basically.
Right.
That's pretty typical though. The software will take another half generation to catch back up.
Yeah.
So when I upgraded my Mint boxes to 20.3,
Yeah.
I lost icons. Turns out one of the fixes, because I had lost the icons before, like in 19 dot something.
Yeah.
Well, the fix actually broke the icons in 20.3. So I had to go and unfix the fix to get the icons to come back.
Nice.
So somewhere between 19.2, when I lost the icons, and 20.3, they actually fixed the problem. But the fix actually caused issues. And I'm like, I lost icons again. Ah!
So how do you lose icons?
It's down in the taskbar where
Yeah.
the system bar where icons just show up. I
Yeah.
had a couple of programs that didn't want to show up. And if I remember right, back in the day, it was because they were using a different display, a different kind of icon display than what the current system bar would show. So you had to force it to show them.
So now there was nothing there, or there was just the default icon there, which is
Well, some of the icons were there, but some of them weren't. So that's where trying to troubleshoot a problem where some of the icons are there and some of them aren't is very fun. But I figured it out eventually. Nobody helped me. I was like, well, I'll just turn off all these fixes I did. And that fixed the problem.
okay.
So it's one of those weird issues where you can't log out either. You actually have to reboot to get it to reset the settings back. So even just logging out instead of rebooting doesn't fix the problem.
Control Alt F1, log in at a console and tell it to shut down from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is he doing there? Changing the light bulbs there, Steve?
Well, he's exchanging the bad light bulbs in his office with the good light bulbs in his boss's office.
Oh, that's interesting. That doesn't sound to me like a career enhancing there. Okay.
It makes my boss's office more aesthetic and cave-like, which is what he wants.
Oh,
Maybe
And-
I'm going to assume he wants.
It might make the boss actually change the lights or
My bo-
something.
My boss is also on vacation, so we'll come back and I'll just say, "Oh no, I just left the lights on for a while." Sorry about that. I mean,
okay.
I don't want to change the light bulbs or I don't want to buy new light bulbs. So
I
we're
don't
just
have-
going to
I don't have
switch them
authority to buy.
around.
Yeah.
I only have authority to make my life easier.
So those are T8s or T9s?
I think so. They're the ones about 3/4 of an inch in diameter.
3/4 of an inch. Okay, so it's T6s.
Okay.
A T is 1/8 of an inch.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And I know this from my days of building LEDs. The standard LED is a T1 3/4. That's the one that looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch. It's not actually, but and the T1s are much smaller diameter. A piece of trivia you pick up in working various jobs over the years. It actually dates from Edisonian times, all right?
He's up on a ladder. I don't know what's happening now.
Well, as long as he doesn't fall off.
You do know CPR, right, Steve?
Yeah, and there's a defibrillator out in the hallway.
Okay. So how high is the ceiling? It's like a 9-foot ceiling, 10-foot ceiling?
They're more than 8. Yeah, 9.5. I don't know. They're drop ceilings.
Yeah.
It's just normal business.
Yeah. With the drop ceiling T-bars.
Yep.
Spent a lot of time pulling cables and above the T-bar.
The lighting is much better.
He likes it bright. I always kept the lights off in here.
I was
Didn't
gonna
interrupt my
say,
sleep.
I dim the lights as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the lights in this office off for about 3 years.
Yeah, but then when you go outside when it's light out, you just go, oh my God, why is everything so bright? And you realize it's because you've been like living in a cave.
It's kind of like walking out of a bar in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
you know?
Other than
Not
Thursdays,
that I ever did that, of course, but you know,
other than Thursdays, I hardly ever got out of here before it was dark.
Yeah.
so is this,
Download.
I did not.
so is this, this single office or is this multiple people?
This,
Yeah.
at one point, there were 4 people in here. It's got a counter all the way around the perimeter, but it became a one-man office. This is, when I worked here, I had the biggest office in the company. And that was true for the company I worked at before here, and the one before that as well. I've always ended up with the biggest office because I got the most crap spread around.
Do you have any external windows?
No,
External windows? What do you mean? Oh, wait. Okay. Never mind. I get it. I was about to say, like Windows is exposed to the outside world, as in like the operating system.
No.
He's thinking techie kind of thinks.
Yeah, think executive office suite, okay? The more windows you have to the outside world, the higher up the hierarchy you are.
when I worked at the printing company, there was the server room had an internal window so that when they did tours and stuff, they could show people the blinky lights. My office, on the other hand, they kept the door locked. They didn't want anybody to come in by accident. We think you can use the latest one that's in there too, because it's from 2021.
Downloaded both of them.
Okay.
Did you guys see this? It's a drop-in Wi-Fi module to the Arduino Uno.
How does that work?
This guy, I don't know. I read part of this. He's got both the Atmega 328 and ESP 85 something.
So he's
On-
switched to a smaller package so that he could actually throw other stuff on the main board.
Yep, and then he wrote some
So only-
software to bridge the two together, and it still acts as a Atmega 328. So,
Neat.
and it's going to be on Kickstarter soon, and it's not there yet. I don't know what it's going to cost, but I'm probably going to try to grab a couple of those just because.
So are they actually producing it or just developing it?
Well, it just keeps saying coming soon. So,
Okay.
How long has it said that?
I've known about this for probably a week and a half, 2 weeks. So not
So it isn't officially phantomware yet.
not yet. But it looks like there's at least a prototype.
So what's he got this on Kickstarter for? 25 bucks?
Or it doesn't have it on Kickstarter yet.
It doesn't. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to cost.
No.
If it's $25, that seems a tad expensive.
Really? Well, I mean, I guess, well, I don't know. That seems acceptable to me. 25 for a drop-in.
For a drop-in replacement. I don't know. To me, that seems a tad expensive.
With today's silicon, though?
Well, yeah. If you could get all the stuff.
I know.
I don't know what the 85, 82s are going for anymore.
I saw on DigiKey, 80 megas were like 1,000 a piece at one point.
What?
Swear to God. Like just jelly bean parts. They had 80 megas listed at $1,000 a piece.
Okay.
Somebody had a pile of them, and they were. I think they were one of the third-party sellers, because you could be a third-party seller and sell things on DigiKey, and if you happen to have a cache of them, it's a seller's market. If some government contractor really needs an 18 mega, they're fucked. You're gonna buy it.
Well, yeah, if you have an infinite budget, they're
Well, DigiKey has the ESP8285 chip for $1.20 a piece. So that's, I mean, it's not, and they've
It's
got
not.
86,000 of them in stock.
Yeah.
So it's,
Let me look at my. I think I can find the link to it again. I'll send it to you.
28p. And the 328, we don't need the microcontroller. We just need the MCU. We don't need a board. We just
Yeah, those are 50 cents.
need the IC as a dip. They're $2.82.
as a dip or surface mount.
It's a surface mount because he's making his own dip. So he's making his own replacement. So I mean, you've got $4 worth of microcontrollers. It's 25 may not be so unreasonable.
$2
It just
for the
seems-
circuit board.
Yeah, it just seems like that would be more than what I wanted to pay for one.
That's hardly a good standard to go with. As a marketing principle, using Leroy's threshold of pain is
Fair.
okay.
that was also the single prices. I mean, if he's buying them in bulk, he's getting them a little cheaper. But see right there, he's got.
So what does that do? Plug in along the one side of the Arduino?
Oh, you've got.
In the deep socket of the 80 mega.
I think he's just showing that it's a lot smaller. I think the end product will be the size of an Uno.
Oh, so it's basically plugging in place of the
You pull the dip out and you
Okay.
pop this thing in.
Okay, the light dawns. Eventually, it always
The-
does.
The
For-
dip on those boards is in a socket, so you just pull it out and you drop it in.
Okay, so you need the non-surface mount Arduino. Yeah, okay.
What's the idea? Because for me, it has no sense to do that. I mean,
It adds Wi-Fi to
yeah, but
the
you,
Uno.
you can use an ESP32 for
Yeah.
$5
Yeah,
with more I/O and with the two processors, more memory, more everything, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth.
well, I think I think he said that the idea was because of all the shields that are available for the.
But it's cheaper to use a shield adapter from ESP32 to Arduino Uno.
Mhm.
Yeah,
With some level translators or something.
yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting idea. If it's cheap enough, like I'd pay $7 for that.
Okay. We opened the bidding at $7. Okay.
Notice nobody said why.
Okay. Just because.
Observation.
$7 seems like a fair price.
Leroy's
I
got
might
a-
even buy 2 of them for $7 each.
Yeah, you've been feeling a little peaked there recently, though, Leroy. Maybe that's the reason.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, this is Leroy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him. He's perfect. Yeah, this is a normal day here. Normal
Seems,
meeting.
seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Well, so when is this thing supposed to go live as a kickstart?
It doesn't say. I will let you know though, because I signed up for it. I put a link to the hacker.
Don't do that.
Don't tell you. See, you're the one saying the ESP32 is better, but you buy it too. I know you. I said that.
I have a basement full of stuff because of you.
Drive yet?
I know. I have a room full of stuff because of you. So,
Now here's the way it goes. And in 2 or 3 weeks, Vicente will come in and say, "Oh, you got that for $7? I got that for 3 cents." You know.
I got that for $3.
But all this is predictable, I'm saying.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And well, Vicente is right. I really don't use the Unos anymore because the ESP32s have so much more power. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, cool.
EV2.
Your Heathkit's got Unos in it, I bet.
So what's the Wi-Fi chip they're using?
8285. So it's related to like the 8266, but it's
Well, now,
it's
does
different.
it have a built-in antenna or do you have to put an external antenna on it?
I don't
Just the chip.
know.
Probably
See it.
built in.
There will be an antenna in the adapter in the PCB.
It says providing Wi-Fi connectivity through the onboard chip antenna.
Onboard chip. Ceramic onboard chip.
So there's castellated pins. Apparently, you could use this if you get a programmer, you could use it as it is without sticking it in the Uno as well. So
But you will be using AT commands or something to
yeah,
control the.
yeah. There's a bridge for the UART between the ESP82 and the at Mega. So it's going to probably use the same bridge library that they used for like the UN. But I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting. Take some of this older hardware. And remember, the other Arduino company, they tried to build a Uno Wi-Fi board, and it didn't sell very well. So
When you say other Arduino company, are you talking about like when they had the whole like copyright issue?
yeah, they split apart there for a little while, and there was Arduino.com or whatever, and Arduino.org or
Yeah.
Arduino.cc.
Is this?
Yes, they had that Uno Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
and I've got one of those boards. I have used it twice, I think, for something.
Now,
So
this is
Probably right,
different.
Vicente. I probably don't need this. You're quickly talking me out of buying this thing.
You're
Don't do
busy,
it.
don't go to the other screen. Jeez.
Bring a coffee. I was in the library today doing this.
Cool.
This is in Centerpoint Library?
Yeah. I was making a track for my gradient bot.
Oh, yeah.
And it's working.
Yeah.
Look at that go.
Wow.
Sweet.
BattleBots is this week.
So is there a gradient in the grayscale going
Yeah,
from
yeah.
inside to
Grayscale.
outside?
Grayscale. He's looking for a gray level and try to maintain in this level all the time.
So do
Oh,
they
I
charge
understand.
you? They charge you by the hour or by the minute or something?
Well,
like that?
I print 2 of those last week and 2 of those this week, and everything was $12, like $3 each.
Wow,
That's cheap enough.
Yes.
that's pretty good. How big's that plotter? What's the max size on it?
48 inches, I think.
48 wide. You can put
Yeah.
rolled paper in it,
Yeah,
unlimited length.
yeah.
Well, you're limited to the roll of the
It's
size
real,
of the
it's
paper.
real cheap, real cheap.
$3 a print, that for
Yeah.
those large, that is a great deal.
And
Yeah.
they say me that I can order the printing. I don't need to go there. I just can order the print.
So
By-
you just
by-
download the
Yes,
design
yes,
and
yes. And I can pick up the banner or whatever I want.
Are you the one who did the gradient bot thing?
Excuse me?
Are you the one that did the actual robot that was running on top of the thing that was
Yeah,
printed?
Well, I designed the sensor.
Ah,
The sensor that is in the front.
so is it like controlled by a PID loop, or like, or what's it actually?
Actually, it's on off. It's the first try, but
Yeah.
I am planning to use a PID controller to maintain the direction steady. And I am designing an 8-figure track. It's a little complicated in the crossing, but I already solved the problem. I will send the track to the library to have the print next week and try it. So this is
So it's 48 inches wide and you can make it as long as you
This,
don't run out of paper.
this one is 28 inches. The one I print, okay?
Oh, it's
but they-
28 inches,
They
okay.
have a larger size.
About how long did it take to print those?
20 minutes. I was there 20 minutes.
So they, do you have to bring your own cartridges or whatever? I mean, they must be.
No. They have all the materials. They have a lot of rolls of different materials.
So at $3 a print, they're losing money.
But this is the most expensive
Oh,
material.
it's really
You
cheap.
can use paper or you can use vinyl sticker material. It's cheaper than the banner. This one has a underlayer of threads to make it very strong, but you can use cheaper material to box for the same thing, you know. They really
So the $3 includes material.
everything.
Huh, that's a good deal.
It's like a service, you know. It's for makers or for whatever you want. So it's really cheap.
How's the bookings on the machine?
Well, I did it in 1 week in advance. I made the course 2 weeks ago. You need to be certified to use the machine, but they help you all the time anyway, you know. But today they told me that I can order the print by the webpage of the library, and will cost the same. I can pick the material already printed, so I will do that. I will do that next week.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
interesting.
So you're making a double figure eight, or what's the new design you're making?
No, just an eight figure, but the problem is the intersection because
Yeah.
Oh, the
the
crossover.
gradient changed direction in the crossing.
Yeah.
So I need to figure out how to identify the crossing and keep going forward and maintain the.
So what is the actual pattern within the crossing itself? Like, is it?
Let me show a drawing I have. Just a second.
Build a bridge.
1 second. I'm looking for a drawing. Okay, here it is. Okay, I will share the screen. You see the track. This is a simplification, okay? Yeah, I'm just studying the problem. When you go in one direction, you have the darker area to the right, you know, all the time. And to keep your darker area to the right all the time, you need to change to the outside and to the inside of the loop, the darker area, you see?
Okay.
So you need to pass over this area. I am planning to just use the black as a go straight order. I mean,
Yeah.
you come in controlling your direction, and when you find black, you go straight until you reach the other side and continue with the same algorithm.
So you just lock the wheel and go straight ahead then.
Go straight, yeah. Both wheels with the same speed, and go straight.
Yeah, build a ramp and have it go over and under.
Okay.
That way you wouldn't have to change anything.
No, but I like the $3 printing.
Going straight is gonna be hard, particularly if it's moving back and forth. Go straight's gonna be
No,
hard.
but I need to change the algorithm to go steady, straight, you know, to use a PID controller to make the robot go straight and smooth. So when it reach the black area may be like a a smaller diamond, just to go straight and reach the other side. Maybe
So is the
smaller.
black outline also printed as well?
No, this is just a paint draw just to check the concept. This is not the drawing software I am using. This is Paint in Windows. Just a
Yeah.
paint. It's a very basic program to paint stuff. So that's it. I have a friend here, as always.
Ah,
You have any goodies for him?
What?
You have any treats for him?
Yeah, I have peanuts.
Ah, yes.
Oh,
You want-
we're talking about for him. Not for you.
I throw the peanuts in the floor and he looks for it.
You throw it on something that is also peanut colored.
You got to challenge him.
Oh, no.
You know, now I'm dealing with this circuit, you see? This is the Raspberry Pi Pico.
Yep.
And this is I2C protocol. The Pico has a lot of I2C. The pins can be reassigned. Almost all the chip has I2C pins. I am using a pressure sensor that has a single I2C address, but I want to use 6 sensors, and all of them have the same address. So I need to change dynamically the pins of the Pico to address the different sensors that have the same address, I2C address, you know. I can use a I2C multiplexer, but I think that I can use the Pico for that.
So what kind of pressure sensors are you using?
BMP 280.
Yeah, but
Measure
what's the technology? Is it
micro machining is like a tiny membrane, like a microphones, MMS microphones that they blend with the pressure.
okay?
So, and I will use the pressure sensor to sense tubes to make a globe. You know, each sensor goes in a finger, and you can identify the position of your fingers just reading the pressure of the tube. So I'm working on
So
that.
you have 6 of them?
6, yeah. 5 fingers plus this movement.
Oh,
This one moves in up and close, and you can also move inside out of your hand. But I'm just an idea.
so you're going to use that then to control a robot? or-
Let me show the concept. Let me look for a video that shows how it works. Videos. Second, let's try to stop. well, let me use. What's up? Okay, just a second. I'm looking for a video.
Bought some right, for Windows, two different
Okay, here it is.
different
Sharing,
companies that all have different database.
sharing the screen.
But I haven't set them back yet.
So Steve, how's the house hunting going?
We put a bid in on one house, didn't get it. We're still looking.
You looking primarily in the Milford area or?
45150, 45140. Just within a 15 to 20-minute drive to work. We're
So
looking.
basically
pretty good.
Miami Township,
Yeah.
Milford, that area.
Yeah, I'd rather be outside of 275 than inside.
Okay, sure.
So right now is not a good time to be buying a house.
No, it's a seller's market.
This is the sensor, pressure sensor in the back of your
Wow.
finger. You see?
So the pressure sensor is up there on the back side of your finger.
Yeah, it's connected to the tube. I will identify the finger position just using the pressure sensor. But I need to use 6 of those. You see?
Yeah.
So those tubes will be glued to the back of the glove. And you can use your hand to move stuff in your screen or a robot or whatever you want. The sensor, the flex sensor costs $16, but this sensor costs 50 cents, you know? So
Now, sensor there is over your fingernail or over the back of your finger?
it's at the end of the tube. This is the sensor.
It's an air pressure sensor,
Yes,
just sensing the
Oh,
tube flexing reduces the volume.
yes, exactly.
Oh, cool. That is definitely very clever.
Okay, I need to do that for the 5 fingers plus your
Plus the thumb.
the thumb, yes, moving inside your palm.
The shorter the tubes are, the more sensitive it'll be.
Yeah, it will be shorter because all the sensors will be in your hand, in the back of your hand. Maybe I'll make a PCB with the sensors put together. I need to design like a plastic seal with different connectors for the tubes. But this is one of hundreds of projects. So
You could also make it more sensitive by making the tube more flexible. A thinner walled tube.
I try with 10 different tubes and materials and sections and different pressure sensors and different controllers. So I have a lot of information on how to do it the best way.
Very cool.
Yes, absolutely.
For example, here I am using Python because it's faster to make changes. You change a letter in your code and instantly your software changes. You know, you use Arduino or a C compiler, you have like a minute between your compiling and try the experiment. So I like the Python for this kind of
Well, it's
experiments.
it's a relatively slow response device from a
Yes, yes.
microcontroller point of
It's
view. so.
just for the concept, you know?
Yeah.
So you can put the gloves on and play the piano, right?
No, I don't know exactly what to do, but maybe will move my hand inside a virtual environment and move stuff inside a computer, you know? Picking boxes or moving stuff in a virtual space. That's an idea, just,
That is super cool.
that's it.
What kind of resolution does it have? Because it looked like it had plateaus in the.
No, I'm taking 10 samples per second. If you increase to 100, you have a softer shape, or 1,000 times per second.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to see the effect. But you
Yeah.
can have a very smooth curve, you know, because the resolution is really high. I don't know if you can see the numbers, not in this video, but the numbers are
So what is the scale of the sensor?
Look at the numbers in the left side of the screen. You have 1434 decimals. You have a lot of resolution in the pressure. You see, in the window.
Are you intending to screen share right now? Because you're not right now.
No. Oh, sorry. There, you see. Now,
Is that
There it
sensor
is.
you see the
sensitive
numbers.
enough that it could pick
Yeah,
up the
yeah,
heartbeat?
yeah.
The numbers to the left of the screen here.
Yeah.
You have
Unfortunately, it's cut off the. So you got a lot of resolution though.
Yeah, yes. You have a lot of resolution. So you need to put your glove in your hand, open your hand, set calibration, close your hand, set again calibration, and you have all the range of all the fingers already in your program, you know? So you only need to interpolate and figure out where your finger is.
Neat.
Are those sensors sensitive enough that if you put one in a stethoscope tube, you could pick up a heartbeat?
Excuse me? This is a pressure sensor. You can have resolution from the sea level to 30,000 feet. So you have a huge range of values, you know. And I need to figure out what the size of the tube to make the most of the range of the sensor.
Yeah.
Because
Have you tried putting like just a regular uninflated balloon on it?
yeah, but maybe something like move between sea level or where you are and maybe 3,000 feet in a simulation.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You have a usable range to use it. So
I've got a bunch of silicon tubing if you want to try that.
yeah, this one is silicon. I use different materials, but this one is working very well. The problem with silicon is the glue that you need to use. It's very specific for the silicon, but it's very strong in the bonding also. It's very good.
That looks like the kind of tube you put on a aerator in a aquarium or whatever. It's a small diameter Tygon tubing.
Yeah. You need to use different sections with different walls in the tube to make the most of the variation when you move your finger. will work.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Well, like this, I have maybe 200 projects working on.
Yeah,
You might be able to put the entire sensor in a little tiny container, and then instead of having to run a tube all the way, you just use a dental floss over the finger, and it pulls on the diaphragm. And that way, you wouldn't actually have to deal with the tubing itself. And I think you get a decent amount of resolution out of it. I have no idea. Your project looks cool. I'm not trying to say anything bad about your project.
Just an idea. I start using the tubes for a robot in the perimeter of the robot
Yeah.
to sense any touch of the robot. So
Yeah.
I say, okay, let me use the same principle for sense the finger position.
Yeah. That's good. I like that.
So you've tested it with a sample rate up to 100 per second or not, or what?
Yeah, yes, I try with different speeds. The sensor is faster than that, you know. And I test with the BMP 180, and now I am using another that is 280. Is better. And this one has I2C and I2S. Have the both buses, so maybe I can use them in the same bus using enable signals to each sensor, turning on and off each sensor with other signals. I figure out. So when we will be back in the library?
I will see.
Leroy, are you okay with your flu or whatever you have?
I'm better. I mean, I feel a lot better, but I'm still not great.
So
Still not
you
100%.
Have you retested yourself since you went
No.
through the recovery part?
No, I like I said, Pat, it was important for Patty to get tested
Yeah.
a couple of times because that her work required it. But me, I just assumed that if she had it, that's what I had because we're here. I mean,
Okay.
And Kenny retested, and he was still positive yesterday.
Yeah.
Really?
We are well outside of the quarantine time period. And like I said, I'm feeling better. I'm just not 100%. So
You're tired?
I'm not so tired. It's just
Weird.
yeah, it's just weird.
As you are.
Yeah. I have never quite felt as weird as I mean, it's a weird sort of, and it's hard to explain because I've never quite felt it before. It's just different.
Fog?
It's not really. I don't know how to explain it. It's just weird. It's just a weird sort of feeling.
So is your fever gone?
My fever broke like the third or fourth day. So I have not had a fever again. I think, when my fever broke, I definitely started feeling better, but
having a fever sucks.
Yeah.
yeah.
Rest,
Kind of curious. With the
irritation.
standard nasal swab, how long do you test positive for for COVID? I mean, is it just the 6 days or so that it lasts? Or
I don't know.
I think usually it's a week or so. No more
Yeah.
than that.
Patty, all I know, I did take the test, one test, and my test took the whole entire 15 minutes to come back, and it still wasn't 100% that I had it. Her test, almost as soon as we stuck the nasal swab into it, her test came right up and was positive. I'm like, she's the one sick. I'm the one that just doesn't feel good. But
So is she
Here they go.
fully recovered?
yeah, she is. She's still. A couple days ago, she was still kind of tired, but she doesn't have the cough. She doesn't have any of the drowsiness or any of the weird symptoms that I had, and so she's better.
Is she back to work?
She's back to work. They cleared her for work, which is probably good. Her fever, she never really had a fever. She, like I said, hers was different too. She never really had a fever. She lost her sense of taste and her sense of smell, and she's still complaining that stuff doesn't taste right. So
That sounds horrible.
yeah.
Well, Jim, that's what you said, is that you didn't lose your sense of taste. You just tasted funny.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it still hasn't completely gone away after a couple of years, so bummer.
Yeah. Well, the chicken noodle soup that I had was the only thing that I couldn't taste, but now everything tastes normal again. So see, I think I had a very mild case and she had the bulk of it. So,
Yeah.
but
So
she's also out in the public more too. I mean, she works at Kroger, so she's dealing with the public a lot more than I was. I was just dealing with her.
so now, did she have to have a PCR test before she came back to work?
I honestly don't know what the test was. She got it done at a pharmacy at Myers.
not at Kroger's?
No, Kroger's wouldn't give her the test for some reason. So Myers gave her the test. Go figure that one out.
All a psyop. They're trying to get all the sick people to go to Walgreens.
Yeah, anyway, even the professional test that she took, I mean, it came back within 10 or 15 minutes of saying that she was positive. And I'm like, yeah, she's sick, because the home test came back really fast. The other test came back really fast, and mine took every bit of 15 minutes and was still kind of
Iffy.
Maybe that's the antibody test then, because I don't think they ship out the PCR one without testing it in a lab.
Okay, I am putting here a link that you can ask for free tests,
free tests.
kits to your home. They will send.
Yeah, those are the ones you pick up at the post office.
Okay.
But you can use this page just to put your data and ask for them.
Well, like I said, I assumed that because she had it, because she was positive, I must be positive as well. I mean, that's
Safe assumption.
but it is what it is at this point. And we're well outside of the quarantine period. Even if you go by the old standard of 2 weeks, we're well outside of that. We stayed home basically for 2 weeks without going anywhere. So we're well outside of that.
Nice.
So
Just rest.
it's
Rest
just
and soup.
it's just a weird. I have never quite felt as it's just weird. And if you haven't had it yet,
Slow motion.
yeah, you won't know what I'm talking about until you get it. And apparently everybody gets a little bit different. So
I had it on December, not this December, the other one,
mhm.
before the vaccines. I was a week like doing nothing. I can move and just staying.
Well, that's pretty much how I felt last week. Was I just wanted to crawl back in bed and go back to sleep.
That's
This
how I
week-
felt for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said, see, I don't think I ever had COVID. My symptoms are what I felt for the last 20 years of my life. But I just assume that because she was positive, I was also positive. And it's better to err on the side of caution instead of
So
something
did your
else.
grandkids ever come down with it?
No. And we did have to watch them at least some of the time during those 2 weeks because somebody's doing a rescue.
Yep.
We did have the one grandkid.
WQP.
That poor telegraph operator's fingers.
Yeah.
No, that's automatically sent.
I'd like to think that, like,
Somebody's there tapping.
look, you can't rely on the system to actually send the ID. They just make somebody do it.
No, no, then they gotta pay them.
Okay. So that is the update with me, though. Maybe next week we'll be able to do something. Maybe a whole month of this will be enough.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Kinda miss
some
the
of us are
excuse of
getting
being early.
emaciated.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, don't know who it could be.
All right.
We're just about done, huh, Leroy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's after 7
It certainly is.
and it's dinner time.
Yeah.
All right.
Good to have a new face in here, but yeah, it's better looking
Yep.
than Steve, huh?
Good night,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
take care.
Okay, we'll see everybody either Zoom or in person next week.
Right.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.